Golf Course Creeper, the story of MERK. When I was 16 years old, I worked my summer at a golf course and it sucked. I had to be there at 5:30 a.m. and stay until 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. I was making minimum wage, and it was my first job, so I was just happy to be making money. I got this job of being a landscaper for the golf course, along with my two friends, because our teacher knew some people who worked there. Anyway, I'm a girl who looks very young for her age, and I was working with another girl from school and this guy. So, there were three of us, two 16-year-old girls, and a 15-year-old black guy who could pass off for his mid-20s. He was the nicest guy, though. Every morning, the golf course would open at 7 a.m., and you would have these really annoying daily golfers who complained about everything. But we were used to it. We quickly learned within a week that there was a regular who came by every day, who we called MERK. MERK would always be there at 7 a.m. and make sure he got his pick of the golf carts, and he would play 2 rounds of golf and be done by around noon, and then he would just ride around on the cart and talk to the staff. At first, I thought he was just a lonely old guy, but sadly, no. My friends and I were the only 2 females working there, and he found out quickly that he really liked us. My guy friend that always worked with me would often take trips by himself to collect the trash. He told us that MERK would wait until nobody was around, and he would try to run him over with a golf cart, getting close to him, where he would almost hit him and swerve the other way and then laugh. Now, being an older-looking black kid, he actually looked tough, and nobody messed with him, and not much freaked him out, but MERK sure as hell did. I was washing the golf carts the one day out back, and he came over to me and said, "It would be so much better to watch if you would do it in a bikini," and then drove off in his golf cart. The other girl I worked with was putting down some of the stuff and needed more, and he offered to give her a ride in the golf cart, and she declined, and he insisted on it. Lucky for her, the boss came by and gave her a ride, and MERK just drove off. He asked me once if I wanted to hang out after my shift, and he would show me some golfing pointers, and I told him I'm not really into golf. I just work here to landscape. And he said, "Well, golfing with me can be really fun. I bet I can change your mind." I still told him no, and when we would leave for the day, he would watch all 3 of us leave from his car. He would pretend to put his golf equipment in his trunk just to watch. He at one point told my friend he worked there at one point, and my friend mentioned it to her boss, and he just laughed and goes, "No, he didn't. Don't listen to MERK." Apparently, he has been a member of that golf course for like 10 years or something, and so everyone just lets him do whatever he wanted. We would get told, "Oh, that's just MERK," every time we would mention him following us. I was never so happy to go back to school. I dealt with him for 2 months. He used to always wear this bright banana yellow colored hat, and he had a mustache and always put a red flag on his cart. I've been told by many people who worked at the golf course that he's odd and creepy. Apparently they call him MERK because his last name was like Merkolski or something like that. Never even knew his real name. Sleeper creeper at my golf course job. I started working at my current summer part-time job last spring. I am situated in a large old building that used to be a country club, but fell into disrepair about 10 years ago. Although there's nothing paranormal about my story, it is maybe worth mentioning that the former manager committed suicide in the main office upstairs when they went out of business. It adds to the unsettling quality of this place. Along with that, so due to seemingly never-ending hallways and passages, innumerable hidey holes and half-empty pools, and other strange unused parts of the building, like a secret shower room sauna, and a tunnel to a storage areas that connects the men's and women's bathrooms. There are also lots of doors to the outside in this place. It makes sense for a country club, but currently, we only use one small room for the golf course check-in, the kitchen, and one dining room for the restaurant upstairs, and the small cafe area for early morning golfers to get their coffee and beer. The cafe area is where I work. In the summer, we clock in to open the cafe before 6 a.m., often before the sun comes up. The golf course people come in pretty shortly after, but I would be the first person in the building every morning. I would unlock the front door, disarm the alarm, walk downstairs in the dark, unlock this cage that keeps the drunkies at the bar upstairs at night from wandering downstairs, and crawl along a dark, long hallway with no windows to get the light switch at the end of the hall. This always creeps me out, and I end up holding my keys between my fingers like brass knuckles. Now, I'm a woman in my mid-20s, and I've lived in pretty bad neighborhoods before, and ninja sliding down the walls on the opposite side of whatever doorway is coming up, just because it's pitch black, and I am a scaredy bear. By the time I get to the end of the hall and flip the lights on, my heart is always pounding out of my chest as I struggle to find the right key to let me into the cafe. The whole situation started when Tim, a golf course employee, mentioned that he kept shutting the door between the men's locker room and bathroom and the storage area that leads to the women's, and every time he would go back in there, it would be open again. This, along with some strange noises, was fodder for the bar regulars upstairs to claim this place was haunted by the old manager and whomever else they said died within these walls. Travis, a co-worker in the cafe, also mentioned that a few minutes after he opened, he went into the men's locker room and noticed that it was steamy and smelled like soap. So he went into the shower room to investigate, and everything was soaping wet and still hot. He was the only person who was supposed to be there at that time of day, but didn't see anyone, so he let it go. A couple months later, Tim noticed this weird side door that you had to climb up a rickety old staircase on, which was on the side of the building, and it wasn't shutting correctly. He fixed it, and it locked correctly, and didn't think anything more of it. Shortly afterwards, someone from the golf course came over to tell me that they found someone's entire life packed away in one of their hundreds of lockers that no one uses, and they thought that someone was living in the storage room between the men's and women's bathrooms. He must have been coming in before the golf course people set the alarms when they left in the evenings, and leaving after the cafe person, me, would come in and turn off the alarm in the morning time. So that means that every morning, as I blindly shuffled my way down that long dark hallway alone, one of those pitch black doorways actually did have someone hiding behind it. A few days later, a red-faced, angry, bald man in Vietnam-era army-issue glasses came into the cafe and started screaming, puffing, and flailing his arms around, yelling about his stuff getting thrown out. He went over berate the golf course people, so they asked him about the contents of the locker. He answers about specific items, which led them to realize that this was the man who was secretly living in one of this building's many dark passageways. I never found out much about him, though, whether he was dangerous or just homeless, but watching him scream about his stuff made it clear that he wasn't 100% rational. I still work there, and do a darkness shuffle down the hall every morning when I work. And although they say everything is on the up and up with the alarms and the doors locking, it still creeps me the hell out. There have been some other creepy things that have happened in this place, and it happened very recently, which makes me think that this isn't all over with. I guess I'll post about it separately if anyone is interested. Edit. The updated post got taken down, so here it is. Monday, I noticed a pad of paper and a long metal pair of tweezers clipped underneath the stairs. I thought it probably had something to do with the inventory, because right before, a manager came in to count our foodstuffs and beverages. Also, it was in an area that is easily accessed by customers, but not technically locked in any way during the day. Today, my friend who works at the bar upstairs told me that someone brought this pad to her, and it has some pretty schizophrenic thoughts in it. It has lots of stuff about how electric cars work to support some kind of government agenda surrounding social media and some plans to pen for some sort of alternative energy source that's involved the UN and foreign passports. Honestly, this part of the building is not under video surveillance, so I have no idea who left it and if they were planning on coming back or not. But it could be the same guy from before. He seemed pretty unhinged and definitely liked to spend a lot of time in weird parts of the building. Golfing with stalkers. So about 10 years ago, not long after graduating college, I was playing in a regional golf tournament. It was the final day of the tournament, and I was lucky enough to be paired with a friend who worked also as a police officer. My friend, I'll call him Tom here, was playing extremely well. By the time we came to the 9th hole, which was halfway through the round for those unfamiliar, he actually held the lead. Being that we were friends, I was happy for him. As we approached our golf balls for the second shot, I noticed what I thought was my then-girlfriend, now my wife, behind the green. My wife has strawberry blonde hair, and so did this person and a similar build. We were still roughly 200 yards from the green though, and there was some haze, so I could not be sure. It became apparent the closer we got to the green that it was in fact not my soon-to-be wife. It was a young attractive girl, maybe 25-ish years old. She had a bright smile. I also noticed that my friend Tom became noticeably disturbed. His demeanor shifted from his normal happy self to serious and nervous. He proceeded to play the 9th hole very poorly, doing everything at a very fast pace. He walked off the green heading directly to the girl, and a discussion between the two ensued. I noticed how happy she seemed, smiling away as they talked. The conversation ended with her handing a plastic bag to him as he walked off. I remember thinking something to myself along the lines of, "You go, Tom." He caught up to me as we entered the teeing ground on the 10th tee. He was still clearly upset over something. I just assumed it was his reaction to playing the previous golf hole poorly. He was no longer in the lead, but one shot back, and still right in the middle of the competition. The 10th hole was one of the easiest of the course, so after I hit my shot, I proceeded to watch him hit 3 balls in a row right out of bounds, which is very hard to do on that hole. For those who don't know golf, this was essentially the end of him having any chance of winning, or even placing in the tournament, which was weird. At this point, he was completely out of contention. Naturally, I was upset for him, as I truly liked him as a friend, and if I wasn't going to win the tournament, I hoped he would. There was an awkward silence as we walked off the teeing ground together. Then, out of nowhere, he apologized to me as if he had done something wrong to me. I was baffled and of course told him he had no reason to apologize. However, I had to ask what was going on and if he was okay. I had known him for enough time to know that something odd was going on. He asked me, "Did you see the girl I talked to back there?" To which I replied, "Yes. I thought it was my girlfriend when we first saw her from the fairway. From afar, they have a similar appearance." To this he laughed and replied, be very, very glad that is not your girlfriend. And over the next 2 hours, I got to hear and see just how crazy this girl was. He recalled that she was a girl he dated for a couple weeks, breaking it off when she got overly possessive of him. However, she kept coming around doing a lot of things you hear stalkers do. She would show up in grocery stores that he went to, but that he knew were nowhere near her house. He showed up in a restaurant when he had dinner with a coworker. He would see her out of his front window as she slow drove by his house. All this is crazy behavior, but let's face it, it's not that serious. It was, however, enough for Tom to be granted a temporary restraining order. It was her final move that moved the order from temporary to permanent and cemented her in the Cray Cray Hall of Fame. One night, after coming home from work, Tom found a bag hanging from his doorknob. In it were pictures of him. There were pictures of him at a bar with fellow officers from the previous week. There were pictures of him going about his life, doing things we all do from day to day. But the worst pictures were pictures of him working. You see, Tom worked as an undercover narcotics agent. He is the nicest guy in the world, but he resembles a crackhead. Sorry, Tom, you do. And he looks much younger than his actual age. He would often work in neighboring counties undercover. The pictures in this bag included pictures of him working undercover in a city 60 miles from where he and I live. There was also a note in the bag from her, commenting how good he looked in various pictures she had taken. He had to report this incident to his superiors, at which point he was immediately pulled from that work. The judge upgraded her restraining order from temporary to full. However, he believed her when she argued she did not know Tom was working undercover when the pictures were taken. So in conclusion, no further actions were taken. On the golf course that day was the first time he had seen her since the order. After the round, which neither of us won, we sat in the bar at the golf course and had a couple beers to unwind. I had a very hard time believing this whole story, and I told him this. That was until he went outside and retrieved the bag she had given him after the 9th hole. Sure enough, there were pictures of him and his car inside. All were taken from very, very far away, but they were definitely him. Over the next 5 years, I ran into Tom a few times before he moved away, which was not really related to the stalker. We had a good laugh when he finally met my wife, and he saw the resemblances. He usually updated me on the story when I ran into him. She was in fact arrested for violating the restraining order after the golf course incidents. Many more pictures were found in her house as well. What is interesting is that in our state at that time, all the stalker laws were specific to men. That has since changed and expanded to include cyber stalking laws as well. But had she been a he, she would have easily been convicted for many years for all of her infractions.